Welcome to West Virginian Commonplace. Today I have a special episode. It's kind of near and dear to me because I'm a gamer, Nintendo wise. I have Carmen with me, and Carmen has a very, very, very special last name that because of technical difficulties in my head, I cannot pronounce her last name properly. Um, I am going to introduce her now. So, Carmen, please tell everyone your name and just go right in and tell them about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Carmen Ayala, and I am a self-taught programmer. I've probably been programming for about 5, 6 years, and recently going to launch a startup. Um, so yeah,
Okay, so when did you first learn to code? Like, when did you just decide that you wanted to code? At what age?
yeah, I was about 25. And yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with that documentary, Indie Game, the developer, or I'm sorry, Indie Game, the movie, Indie Game,
Yes.
the developer. That was me. Yeah, Indie Game, the movie. And so I saw that at one point, sometime during that year, and I just got really like excited about it because I've been a gamer since forever, like since I was a little kid. For my generation, it was NES when I was really young, and then N64. I played a ton on N64. So anyway, so I saw this movie, and it basically, for those of you who haven't seen it, it kind of shows you if you're an indie game developer, you don't have to, go to an expensive college or work at a fancy studio if you want to make games. And I was like, I wonder if I could do that. Because I don't know, I've done a lot of random stuff. I at one point wanted to be a video editor, so I grabbed my iPhone 4S and shot like a few rap videos. It was really fun, like just like random stuff that I've tried. So usually I don't hold myself back. If I want to try something, I'll just like give it a shot. So I decided to just make a game. I just started looking up, Googling, YouTube. I found this great tutorial series by a guy named Sebastian Log, and made my first game, which nobody ever played or knew existed. One thing that when I was starting this, and anytime I start anything that I'm teaching myself, I always research a lot. And usually I sort of look up what people do wrong rather than getting specific advice on the path forward that people think, oh, you have to do X, Y, Z. I just look at what people did wrong and like try not to do those things.
Okay.
So yeah. So with game development, most people were like, you have to finish your games, or even general programming. They're like, you need to finish your projects. You'll start 5, 10, 15 projects. They'll all be half done. You won't have anything to show anyone when you want a job. So I think I finished it in about 3 months. I gave myself a deadline for applying for Indiecade admission, and I actually made it through the first round of games with my
Amazing.
little 3 months. Yeah, my first game. Yeah, so it wasn't featured in Indiecade, but I did make it through the first round of judging, which I was really happy about that I made it to round two.
So
Um,
what
so
coding did you start with? Did you learn like Python or something? What was the first language you learned?
yeah, yeah, I started in C sharp. So C
Okay.
sharp, yeah, and that was just because games are made, or well, I started making games in Unity 3D, and
Okay.
that's C sharp or JavaScript, and I chose C sharp.
Okay. All right. So what was your first joy in software development? Like when you started on your game, what was your first joy? Like what dimension was your game in? Was it in 2 dimension, 3 dimension?
It was, they call it a 2.5D because you're
Or two
like
and a half D.
using
Okay.
2D models and perspectives, but
About like
it was platformer style.
all right, so for my audience, I'm gonna give you a take on it. It's about like playing a Super Mario Deluxe type game. About all right,
Yeah.
all right. Okay, so what was
Um,
your first joy when you working in this? Like when did you know like, man, I want to keep doing this?
so I could tell right away. As I said, like I've had so many jobs. I went to school for dental assisting. I was a fry cook. I, oh my gosh, I was a housekeeper. I mean, I've had jobs, like I will just, keep trying, right? So I could tell pretty early on that I was really passionate about it. And yeah, video editing. So I could tell early on I was pretty passionate about it. So that part was easy because I could just tell I was happy on a daily basis while I was learning, even because I had a full-time job as a project manager.
Okay.
And then I was teaching myself evenings, and during my lunch breaks, I would like pull out my laptop and keep working and stuff. So I could tell I was really into it. But what was really unique for me was I was always really bad at math. And it was just one of those things it's like a soundbite. You tell, yeah, I sucked at math. You know, I hated it. Like I failed pre-algebra, I think 2 or 3 times in school.
And there's a lot of
really bad at
expressions.
math.
There's a lot of expressions inside code for people that don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need to understand formulas and algorithms and how everything's going to work. So it was crazy because through programming, I learned math. I learned really complicated math, actually, and it was really great because I had always had this like the stories we tell ourselves, right? Like, oh, I'm bad at math, and it was cool because I didn't do it intentionally. It just happened naturally as I was learning to program. I was learning this really cool math. So I thought that was like my like deep inner joy that I got from it, was that I overcame something that was like very deeply rooted about myself.
Okay.
So that was cool.
Okay, so let me go in the past real quick. What game made you want to become a software developer?
Oh, that's a good one. It's actually one most people probably don't know of unless you're into indie games. It was, I mean, Fez was really, it was like a cleanser for me, if you're familiar with Fez.
So let me give my audience a little quick thing on Fez. All right, Fez, the way that I got into that game, I had this thing called a PlayStation Vita. PlayStation Vita to me was this to me it's still the greatest system that you can find indie games on. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but obviously you are. But the PlayStation Vita has the best indie store. When I look at the Nintendo Switch now, it's almost parallel. Because Fez is one of those deals. It's even a pocket edition now on the iPads and on the tablets. I don't know if you knew that or not. Yeah, so it is one of those games, and the way that it transforms around while you're playing it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about
like so inspirational? Well, it was just cool because he took something that was, Phil Fish, like it was just a standard looking, he wasn't trying to be VR and do all this other stuff, but he just created something out of nothing in a way by having that turn system with the triggers. And like, it was just like one of those things where you look at and you're like, why didn't I think of that? I could never think of that. But it was also like really a driving force where I was like, maybe I could do something cool, So I think that's why my game ended up being a 2.5D, and it was weird because I tried to implement a weird perspective element. So if you know that Fez was part of that initial drive for me, you can kind of see it because I have this weird thing. Your little guy can jump into portals.
Oh wow!
But instead of portaling to another level, it's all like a single plane, but you move up and down in camera perspective.
Okay.
So like you're kind of in this bar basically, and you're kind of a small guy, maybe the size of like an egg, and you hit a portal and you jump from the bar countertop to a shelf in the back, and it kind of just pops you around the same room. So that was like my little ode to Fez in my first game.
So after that, what else inspired you after that? What? Because there's always one game. There's always 2 or 3 things, even because you're an artist. First off and foremost, in artistry, there's something else after that. What was it after that kept you going? Because Fez put you in the mindset, but what was it that kind of like just showed you all the prowess that made you want to just get into software development? Was there a game that you actually like debugged or something?
I mean, not even specific to games, because when I got my first job, I was actually building a lot of back-end systems, a lot of custom APIs and iOS apps, and less exciting things from the gaming side. But once you learn programming, especially that first couple of years, it really grabs you because it's like a superpower. You're like, all of a sudden you understand how all the magical things work behind the scenes, and it just gets you really naturally hyped.
Okay, so like whenever you got your first iOS, I guess we'll call it, is it an SD kit? Or
say again?
Is that what's the iOS? What do you get? Like it's an SDK or something? Software development kit or something?
Oh, the SDK. Yeah, that's a part of it. Yeah.
All right, so when you're building something, like what is something that you built like that got you like truly excited? Like you built your game, but out of that, like in the beginning, what got you excited to get to building games? Because like I said, we're going to do every aspect. You said that gaming influence. You said that the actual work provided you with a little bit, but like what actual inside that work? What was something you worked on that was like, man, I really got this. It's time to just go develop this game.
Um, I mean, it's kind of tough to say, honestly, because in my profession, it's been, you bounce between like getting paid and doing passion projects on the side. And
Okay.
so, it's kind of tough. And of course, it goes a lot deeper than that. I mean, honestly, my dream in life, like I hope like 5-10 years from now, however long it takes, that I can call you up and be like, hey man, like I own my own indie studio and like we're launching this game and then we have this other game in the works, and like, but it's a really hard road to make games. Even at the it's really nuanced. I'm trying to think of how to narrow the explanation here, but
And then
um
say it the way you want to.
yeah, well, for starters, there's not as much money in games. It's almost kind of like if anyone's familiar with the film industry, like you can burn a lot of money,
Very
depending
quick.
on the game. The cost of the labor, the cost of assets, the cost of promotion, and then the fact that people expect games to be pretty cheap, especially indie games. Um, so when you have to go pay all those things back, it's a tough road for sure. So mostly what I do now is I do kind of the less, I mean, I don't find it boring, but like the API, the data work, web development work,
Yes.
um, and that kind of pays the bills. And then I have a few projects that I've been working on prototyping, and when I can foot the bill myself and I don't have to worry about trying to find some obscure British indie game investor, um,
Right.
then I'll launch those games. But
All right. So let me ask you this: as an inspiration, what is your favorite independent studio right now?
oh man, oh geez, that's so tough. Honestly, I don't really follow studio to studio too much. I just oh gosh, what's their name? Let me, let me look real quick. I could tell you my favorite game that came from a small studio recently.
Okay, because I'll tell you, my favorite
Um,
small studio is Benjamin Rivers. Are you familiar?
I'm not familiar with them.
He does a
Oh,
lot of 2D graphic stuff. Like he did a game called Home, and it was like a murder mystery. But it was,
oh, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
I've heard of Home. See, I always remember the games, but I'm really bad with like the
yeah.
remembering all the studio names.
And then
But yeah.
he
So,
did.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm listening.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's Pillow Castle. They made Superliminal.
Okay,
Um, yeah, have you played it?
I haven't played it, but buddy of mine, he is into a lot. He talks about all indie stuff because I'm kind of a corporate guy now with my games because my little boy just plays a Nintendo, so we play things that
Yeah.
make it, But yeah, matter of fact, I'll have to ask my buddy later. I'll talk to him a little bit more about it. So that's your favorite game
Yeah.
right now. All right,
Yeah,
so
it's definitely my favorite game of the past year,
all right,
Superliminal
so
for
so
sure.
what do you so just off topic before we get into your startup, what do you like that's big studio? What do you like that's what's something that's catching your eye that Sony, Sega,
Oh,
Capcom?
yeah, I like probably top AAA tier would be like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I played a lot of that last year, like an embarrassing amount of hours if you were to look at it, went into that game. Um,
So you're a Ubisoft person. I got you. Um,
and oh, sorry, that is my kid breaking. So the other one, which you're probably familiar with, is Kingdoms of Amlar
yes.
Reckoning. They just did the release for Re-Reckoning. I
Ooh.
was like so hyped for that release. Like I've played so much of the original one, like, but it was so broken that like I when I first started playing it, I was using a Steam controller, and the Steam controller stopped working, so I had to teach myself keyboard and mouse just to play the game. Like, like so when they did the update, I was like really excited. So mostly I've been playing that.
Okay. And me, like I said, I'm stuck in console stuff right now because with my job I travel a lot. So I like my problem with what I play is everything's remastered that I'm getting to play. So I play a very varied amount of games, but it's one game called Outer Worlds. Have you heard of
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, I played that. Yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah, and I followed them because I'm a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, the the actual game, not the MMO game or whatever, but the actual like
Yeah.
Old Republic 1 and 2. Like I love those games. Obsidian did one, and then who did the first one? It doesn't even matter. We're not talking about them. We're talking about you. But those type of games just draw me in, and something about Outer Worlds draw me in. So let's get to this. Your startup. What made you? Because if you're familiar, because we're the same age group. There was a TV show called 2020, right? There was Barbara
Mhm.
Walters, a lady named Diane Sawyer, and there was a guy named John Stossel. John Stossel did a funny part. We're not going to do John Stossel. I'm gonna hit you with the Diane Sawyer question, then I'll go to Barbara Walters.
Oh, okay.
All
Okay.
right, so here's our hard hitting question, and this defines the rest of the conversation in this podcast. What
No
made
pressure.
All right, yeah, a lot of pressure right now. What made you want to do a startup, and how are you executing that startup, and what is your final goal after your startup gets big?
All right. Okay. So let me break this apart here. This first piece was what made me want to do it, right?
Yes.
Okay. First piece. That one is a really easy answer. I hate being an employee. I am the worst employee. Even when I'm good at my job, my husband likes to call it contrarian. So we'll go with that.
Okay.
I have a contrarian nature. I kind of just like to do my own thing. And I don't really, um, I don't like structure for the sake of structure, and usually when you're working for any company, there's just kind of an expectation of like, this is how company A does things. We expect you to do things that way, which is fair. Um, but like, my personal life happiness, me living my best life is me making my own choices about my life. And so a startup and being a business owner is my path to that. So it just felt like the next logical step because I had a skill set where I am able to do that, whether that's through building my own platform or just acting in a consultant capacity. Trying to remember, question 2 was execution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure where to start here. Would it make more sense if I talked about the startup and then execution?
Yeah, you can go ahead
Or
with that.
I
Tell us
want
about
everything to
your startup.
make sense.
Yeah, so we'll make it flow
Uh,
together. Tell us about your startup, what you're planning on doing, and how you're going to do it.
all
That's
right.
that's execution there.
All right. So, so the startup itself, and okay. Basically, we are not launched yet. It's going to be 2021 launch because I'm still building the MVP. So that's
Okay.
just on me. But basically, it's a platform for women who struggle buying clothes off the rack and like using the standardized sizing system that's in place today.
Okay.
I mean, like, I don't know a single woman who doesn't have that complaint. And the funny thing is, if you were to Google right now, like custom clothing, you could find a number of online outlets, but they're all for men.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think that's because it's easier with just, I think it's not that men don't have body variance. Obviously they do, but I think the way that women are expected to wear their clothes, like the style of like being more fitted, it's almost impossible to do that at scale. Whereas for men, you can offer custom and you can still scale it. So people are willing to take on that business model, but nobody's really done it for women. So that's kind of the origin of the startup idea anyway. And once I started working on the business plan, just like when we were talking about indie games and like being realistic about financing, because even though I could sit here and be like, yeah, I can build the MVP myself, the reality is, it takes money to make
Right.
things go, especially when you're launching from zero. So what I have done is I have another company that is already up and running called Code and Candor, and that's my software development services and consulting. And so I've been learning a lot about like business development and operations and taxes. And basically how it works is Code and Candor helps my startup, once we launch 2021, startup operates at a loss, but money funnels in from company A to company B. So that's how we keep it alive.
Okay, good business model.
Yeah.
Start off with.
Yeah. So, I just work with what I have. Really.
All right, and I really like that concept you have there. Custom clothes for women, like, or you're saying, so I understand this correctly, like almost like tailor made to a degree,
Yeah,
right?
and I can't go into too many details until we launch
Right,
at least MVP.
right. We'll keep it really tight there. So that's amazing there, and that's empowering. That's one thing. Like on these podcasts, like we try to empower. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. But that's good that you think about the next person beside you instead of, that's really commendable there. So
I'm really excited about it.
So at what age did you have a dream?
Oh, I've had dreams.
Well, no, understand when I say this. I'll give a narrative to it real fast. All right.
Sure.
I'll tell you about me, for instance, and this is just how I blab in the podcast. I had a very simple dream. I was going to be an entertainer. An entertainer, I thought, years ago would be like Chevy Chase, Steve Martin type. They're entertainers or comedians, whatever. Anybody that crosses over. I thought Dane Cook was going to be an entertainer, but look what happened to him. And obviously the real world hit, and I found out that I have one marketable skill. My marketable skill is I'm the guy that comes into your Walmarts and we remodel them across the United States. I'm the superintendent. I'm the guy that plans your Walmart to a degree. So that's my job. That's what I'm here for. I went to school for computer info systems, so I dabbed a little bit here and there and stuff. Okay. But it wasn't my take. I'm really just a human resource guy. I'm just really good with handling people. I'm like a USB cable. I can hook up to anything. So I didn't lose my dream, but over time, because of certain events, I ended up on Judge Judy. So that was my first shot at entertainment. So I had a good 15 minutes of fame. But I became an entertainer because someone was like, you're this weird storyteller from Appalachia. You travel all of the United States. You meet different people, and you just spark a conversation with anyone. So I realized that I'm giving my entertainment away for free. So I started my podcast. So we'll say I'm 35 now. So at 33, I woke up with a dream that I wanted to do a podcast. Success for me is not measured in how much money I make. Success is managing the longevity of what I do. I'm going to make money at it. So you see where my dream came from? So where did this dream come from? What year did this happen? What age?
It's so loaded, because I think I'm sure it's extremely normal to, go through the phases of okay, this is my dream when I'm 16, this is my dream when I'm 20, 25. Right. And it probably sounds awful to say I don't know really what the dream, I think outside of just, a certain amount of stability for my family, a certain amount of control over my own life, like what I was talking about with, not loving the employee vibe. But I've already gone so much farther than I ever than I ever would have guessed, honestly. Like, I wouldn't have believed it. I would have lost so much money on that bet. That I just am kind of in this headspace where I'm just taking my shots as they come along. Like, I'm just taking risks. I'm pushing myself, and sort of just seeing where that takes me, and hoping that making the right, choices for the right reasons will take me somewhere cool.
Okay, I like that answer. Okay, now let's dig into some deeper stuff. All right. There's a young Carmen in the world that wants to get into software development, make some games, or just work in software development in general. She doesn't want to go to college. She doesn't want to do this and that. Walk me through the steps of me being a young lady, a young man, and I want to do it the way you did it. How do I do that?
Let's see. I guess there's a few steps to it. Embrace fear, embrace the unknown. You know, a lot of people, you know, whether they're 25 or whether they're 55 or 65, you know, I talk to like uncles and aunts, even my own dad, and you know, it'll be that, oh, I always wanted to insert thing here. And most people have at least a handful of things. And I don't mean like I always wanted to go to Portugal. I mean like, you know, I always wanted to try that one career, but it never happened, or that one skill. I always wanted to learn guitar, you know, whatever it is. But a lot of people don't push through, and they kind of, we think to ourselves, it didn't happen because of life circumstances, when really it didn't happen because we were afraid to fail, and we were afraid of letting go of that vision and that dream of ourselves that we could be, because if we try it and it doesn't work out, then it goes away and we'll never have it. And then who are we, and what are, you know, it's like an existential crisis that occurs. And I've been through that, like, let's call it 20 times. Because I try it and it doesn't work, and it's, you know, crushing sometimes and really amazing other times. And you just have to embrace that a bit if you want to succeed. And related to that is the persistence factor. Like when I started programming, I had no idea what I was doing, really. You know, I was just teaching myself, taking classes online, following tutorials, trying to build some kind of portfolio to show people. It took me a year to get my first job. So I could tell that I loved it. So I just kept applying for jobs while I had my project management gig. And then when I got that first job, I commuted 4 hours a day. I took a subway, I lived in downtown Hollywood at the time.
Oh, wow.
I took a subway to LA Union Station, took a train to Irvine every single, well, Monday through Friday. So, you know, it's not that every piece of your journey isn't going to be that difficult, but you have to know that, like, the persistence is what makes you lucky. You know, the persistence is what will pay off for you over the long term. But if you don't care about what you're doing, whether it's programming or you want to be a doctor, whatever it is, if you don't care enough to push yourself and persevere, you will likely not make it.
Okay, I like that answer. No,
I'm not sure if that was inspirational, but
it was inspirational and it hit the point. So let me ask you this: in everything you do, because this is something I ask every artist. It doesn't matter, software development, an entrepreneur like yourself. How do you deal with criticism?
Yeah, that is something I still am going through and learning. Like I actually just started posting on TikTok as a way to start to like continue toughening my skin for being more, you know, I've been criticized like in my career in like a small space, but putting yourself out there and allowing people to judge you when you're on a podcast or being interviewed or running a business is a whole other level. And yeah, I mean, I saw something actually a few days ago that I thought was really great. And it was something to the effect of insecurities are loud and confidence is silent. And so when I see someone trying to hurt me in a comment or even things that have been said over the years, I think about that, where it's just like, you know, I can be confident in who I am. I don't need your validation. So even if I have to have a little pep talk with myself, you know, I get through.
So you got tough skin, you're thick on that. Okay, we come to a part in this show that you have to give back to me and the audience, because we love your story and everything. But for us to get more personable, we want to know about a hidden talent or a secret that no one knows about you.
Oh, geez.
Because let me give you a little bit here, and it'll give you time to think about it. I have this friend. He's a rapper that came on my show, and he does really big numbers. He's still indie, but you know he's getting 1 million views, this and that. This gentleman can solve a Rubik's cube in 40 seconds. He has the rocket scientist mind, but using it for the wrong thing. I'm thinking to myself, I want his brain power so I can stop one of the world issues that's causing a crisis in the world. Like with that kind of brain power, he should be able to do something else but rap. But he raps, and his rap is very intelligible, if you want to say that. And he's got that secret skill. You wouldn't think that
Right.
you would think that he's doing whatever stereotypes go with rap, but
Right.
highly intelligent with that and very intellectual outside of that. So, what's the hidden talent or the
Interesting.
secret?
Oh, okay. Well, it's not as cool as that. I cannot solve a Rubik's Cube that quickly. But you said you had, did you have kids? Did you say?
Yes,
I'm
I
sorry,
have
I
an
forgot what you
11-year-old.
said.
Yeah.
Oh, kids. You have, okay. So I have a 2.5-year-old and 7-month-old.
Okay.
So I have most of my life not been able to smell. And it's really funny because you go through life as like people, especially girls, they'll show you like this candle and be like, oh, it doesn't smell great. And you kind of like, oh yeah, that smells amazing. And you waft it. Like I couldn't tell you the difference between vanilla cherry and a bag of poop. So relating to I don't know why. It just never, I don't know. So it feels like a superpower now that I have kids, because as you know, with kids, a lot of poop and smelly bodily fluids, and it's amazing because I can't smell any of it.
Oh, so you get a hack in life.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, does that affect your taste? Can you taste anything?
I think it does. It's hard to say because I don't know what things taste like for other people, but my friends and my husband have pointed out that I tend to like a lot of those weird foods that most people don't like. Like a lot of people hate pickles and like certain really strong garlicky, like they barely kind of register as flavorful to me. So like I don't really notice. Um, but
That's
yeah, random secret. I
well,
cannot smell.
right, but that's like a really big secret. Like you have now gotten the biggest secret on my show because that's a life hack. I mean, we're not gonna put a connotation on it, but we're gonna just say like this: you avoid a lot of stinky situations. You know?
I do. I mean, it's not so great like if you need to smell like if the gas is left on or something. And I could probably never be like a private investigator because they seem to like to smell things a lot. But yeah, it's definitely a life hack for kids and a few other things for sure.
Yeah, so that like puts you just like in the whole realm where you're good to go and never having to worry about smelling anything. I wish I had that
Yeah.
skill.
Being on the subway, it was great. Like I'm sure that probably smelled like the way people talk about subways. I'm sure it smelled
Yeah, with
awful.
all the musty people in there, especially being in California. I was in Los Angeles about 2 years ago, so I've seen what the atmosphere is like in traveling, like you did, because I did the same thing. From where I was at the University of Sheridan, going from there to West Hollywood, and then went to Pasadena and some other places. So yeah, I smelled all that stuff. So
That's so
you didn't,
funny.
you didn't smell any of that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't even know like certain things have a smell. Like someone will tell me like my husband, because he knows I can't smell. He'll point out like, oh, did you realize that this particular food had a smell? And like I just didn't know.
okay. So on a serious note, we're going into my Barbara Walters question now.
Uh-oh.
After this podcast, and obviously with what you're doing, you're going to become more of a social media influencer. You understand that? That's a part of a tag of what we do now. I didn't think that I would. I just thought that I could make a podcast and I didn't have to have a personality outside of the podcast. I thought I could anonymize it and always have it like my picture of what West Virginia Commonplace and never show my face. And I was
Right.
successful for 2 seasons. And then one person asked a question: "What do you look like? Who are you?" We hear this voice, but we don't know who you are. So, how are you going to handle being a social media influencer? Like, how are you going to handle that? Have you been thinking about that? Because
Yeah.
that's a lot to take in.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to do with my little TikTok experiment, is really sort of define that. I know I'm not a particularly good liar, and I don't mean that like as ominous as it sounds, but I feel like to be a persona, a lot of times you sort of putting on a facade. And so what I've been trying to figure out is kind of more of like how I can be visibly authentic, because I'm not very good at hiding who I am and putting on this sort of overly professional or polished front. So the journey that I'm on right now is I think they call it flawed but competent. That tends
Yes.
to be a likable character. You can be flawed as long as you're competent.
And I'll tell you the thing that I
That's the
did.
vibe.
I'll tell you the thing I did in this is I decided not to ever do character development. The person I am to my coworker or to my best friend, that's the same person I'm going to be while I'm talking to you and while I'm doing all this. And with the TikTok thing, we all do some silly stuff on there. Everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody's an entertainer on there. That's the entertainer I'm talking about. But with the social media thing, the only thing that I did different that a lot of people shun me for, but I'm just passing this along. Anybody can access me on my Instagram, either one of those, personal or business. My Facebook, you can get me on my business. My personal, I'm gonna leave that where it's at. As an adult, like our comedic stuff, that our crude humor, I'll leave that on Snapchat for personal friends. So
Yeah.
The only thing that I do that I'm guilty of is I do target my certain audiences with my normal raw self. But if it's anything that's going to offend someone or something like that, I have a separate area for that, and I keep that with the private people. So that's the only thing that I took from all of this personality stuff that you do. Kept my same person I am. Like if we went to high school, I'd be the same person that you went to school with, minus some decent grades and some bad grades. Probably cheat off your test. But so that's great that you have that concept of how you want to keep yourself pure. I like that. The only thing that I ask you to do on this show, because we're all about promotion, not for me but for you. Once you start this upstart, I understand you're going to be taking in volumes of people, but do you have a way on the flip side for a young individual to get in contact with you to talk to you about software development if that's something that they want to do? Because we have all these STEM programs. Do you have like an Instagram or an email or some way that they can reach you just to talk to you to see, your insight on things and how they might want to form their thoughts around what you've done?
Yeah, that's actually something, long-term goals for me. I'm really passionate about opening that door to people who, like me, grew up and probably thought like, oh, I'm bad at math, I can't be a programmer, or, I don't have money for college, or, whatever their reason might be for that barrier. So yeah, and again, I mean, TikTok is the only thing I'm on right now, but the next platform is going to be IG, and both of those are going to be open to anyone who has questions. I mean, TikTok, it already is. I talk with people on there and take DMs. And
all right, so plug your TikTok so that, because you have to understand this is going out to a wide base of people. Right now, Spotify told me today that we're actually in 3 different countries, which that's crazy with me.
Oh, wow.
And when I say countries, I'm talking like, I know we're over in Bangladesh because I got a following over there for some reason. But we're in Europe. We're in actual Europe with this show. So that's America, Europe.
Cool.
And then
Cool.
we might as well say, I'm not going to count Bangladesh and over in that area, but we'll just say Europe, Central Europe, basically. So,
yes. Okay.
All right, no, go ahead. I want you to finish.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah. So, sorry, I lost my thing for a minute here. Yeah, on TikTok, it's at Reversal, but the first E is a 3 because that's how we do it with gamers. And I talk a little bit about gaming on there, but a lot of that account is just sharing my story, like how I got from 0 to where I am today, and just kind of the journey. And like I said, I respond to a lot of questions about kind of what we've talked about, how I did it, and I post content about it. I post content about resources that people are using today, like additional plug. I need an affiliate marketing link, but Lambda School is really cool. They are, have you heard of them?
Yes, I have.
You have? Yeah. So yeah, my cousin and a few other people I know went through that program, and it's really cool because that's an avenue you can get an official education that's portfolio based, and then they help you get hired, and you don't pay anything until you get hired over 50K. So like, that's an amazing platform. Like if I was starting right now, that's probably what I would do.
Okay. So let me get you to plug this. You actually run a professional business. Would you tell them about your professional business? Because like I said, you never know who a listener is here. There could be someone out there. These podcasts, people listen to them on their 15-minute break. They're
Yeah.
back and forth to work, in the gym, in the shower. Some people got Bluetooth speakers.
Right. Yeah. So Code and Candor was actually born for a more specific purpose than just funding my other company. I guess that was probably oversimplification. But yeah, Code and Candor, in terms of the work we do, it's consulting and software development services. So less like, can you build my website, and more, can you build this platform to support my business?
Okay.
And consulting is just kind of the overly professional, it can mean a lot of things. I like to think of it as hire a CTO. Like when I started, it's because a good friend of mine, her company, a company that she worked for had been screwed over very badly, like a very large number that I'm not going to say, but it was really, really brutal. And it's because they're non-technical, but they needed technical, they needed someone on their side to like be their CTO and say,
Right.
like, no, what this company is doing is not correct and they're fleecing you. And so that's definitely something I'm passionate about. And that's why the company name is Code and Candor, because whether we're working in the hire CTO function, or if I'm actually building something for you, it will always be a transparent process. Like I will never, use all this fancy technical, confusing terminology when I know you're not technical in order to, get extra money or buy time. I just tell them like it is. I provide layman's term documentation for them and technical documentation for anyone coming after me who's a developer who might work on their project.
Okay.
So it's cool. I haven't gotten any games yet, but if you want to make a game, come see me.
Okay. And once again, Carmen, I want to thank you for being on West Virginia and Commonplace.
Thank you for having me.
It was a very interesting process in finding you, but it's really awesome. And this is actually, if I'm correct, this is your first podcast, right?
It is my first podcast.
So me and my audience want to tell you ahead of time, you did very good. From here, it's the sky's the limit. Make sure you, and I always tell my guests this, and they say that, people always ask, why would you say this? Get on as many podcasts as you can, because we always look at demographics, not selling points, but demographic. You can reach so many people with your message through podcasts. A little stat that I learned about today: 15 hours is provided by people for podcasts in a week. That's a lot of time. But if you stretch it over 7 days, it doesn't look like that much. But to me, that's still a lot of time. So you'd be amazed at how crazy we've gone back to an older element, really, of it's got video and radio, but mainly this audio. We're doing radio basically. We're going back in time with radio, and people are buying into the radio. They want to hear your voice. They want to hear what you got to say. So I want to tell you, thank you again for coming on. Do you have a special shout out to anybody that helped make you or break you?
Oh man. Oof. That's so loaded. I don't know if I can handle that one. I will say shout out to Coder with a K, K-O-D-E-R. That was the company that took a chance on me when I was a complete newbie programmer that didn't know anything. They're big supporters of Latinx startups. They're big supporters of women in tech. So shout out to Coder.
Okay. All right. So once again, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and we hope to have you back when the startup is about ready to come up. That's the cool thing about a podcast. Everything we do is a part 1 and a part 2, even if it's in different seasons, because like you said, you're in the preliminary stages, and then it's about to take off. And the audience would love to have that back. So thank you once again. Okay.
Thank you.